All right, welcome to the Boxing Nerd Series, episode 2. This is where we talk about subjects that are not going to be popular or get a lot of views. We just boxing nerding out. This episode, we're going to talk about Bob Arum making a comment on the relationship between boxing, gambling, and ticket sales. And Terrence Crawford is mentioned in it. Let's talk about it and what it means in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Boxing Nerd Series on the channel. We're going to do one of these every day. This video is not going to be trying to get any views. We know very few of you guys are going to watch them, but it is what it is. This is what I want to talk about today, man. Bob Arum, and make sure, but again, thank you so much to everybody that supports in the super chats. Thank you to everybody that supports on Patreon. Make sure you come to OG Boxing Talk on Sunday, 8 a.m. Central Standard Time with myself, KQKC Boxing, Blood Boxing, Curtis Anderson, and Trap House Boxing. All right, man. I saw an absolutely wonderful interview with Bob Arum, man. You know, I got mixed feelings on Bob Arum. I know Bob Arum is like, you know, the old crook. I know he is, man. But every once in a while, man, he says something because he has such a rich understanding and long history in the sport of boxing. It's like, man, I know I don't agree with a lot of things that he does, but man, sometimes he'll just kick out a gem where I really feel like I learned something listening to him. So he explained ticket sales in boxing. And I was thinking this because I was going back and forth on people with Twitter about the Deontay Wilder ticket sales and Canelo Alvarez ticket sales. You know, people use ticket sales a lot of times lately when they want to tear down Deontay Wilder and say he's not a draw, right? So when Bob Arum started talking about it, I think this might have been on Fight Hype, but he's sitting at a table and, you know, he's almost 90 years old. So, hey, man, he's going to say what he thinks, man. At that age and well before that age, in my case, you get to the point where you're just sick of it. You're just going to tell people what you think. And he was like, look, man, you know, boxing is doing really, really well, but we can't act like we're doing really well at the box office. We're not selling a lot of tickets. And the reason we're not selling a lot of tickets is because of gambling, because we're putting fights out there where people don't really know, where there's no tension in the fight. And when you're not having really good odds, like a good odds in a fight, then people aren't gambling on it. And he said, look, man, that's what drives ticket sales. And that's what, you know, drives people to want to, large numbers of people to want to actually go to the fight because they're gambling. And they feel like if I put this money, if I don't know who's going to win. I think I know who's going to win. It's a close fight. Me and my friends are arguing about it. I bet you, you bet me. So I got money on the table. I got skin in the game. And because I got skin in the game, I want to actually go to the fight and watch my bet. Watch the people actually fight over the money that I bet. So he's like, when you have, Vegas has very good odds and close odds, that's when you get good ticket sales. Or when, and they say that could pretty much be anywhere. He talks about how he also hits a little bit on the regional, you know, on the regional aspect of it, where if you have Terrence Crawford fight in Omaha, because there's a lot of people that really root for him in Omaha, that he can sell out in Omaha. But when you take him out of Omaha, you know, that's no longer the case. So thinking about that relationship, now what he's saying is 100% correct. I mean, there's no refuting that. And actually, if you look at the history of boxing, and man, I could pull up the book. There's a book over there. I won't pull it up in the middle of the stream, but look, man, this is how prize fighting began, through gambling. And this was before there were promoters. Promoters didn't come around until till boxing was legalized. But before that, this is how a boxing event would come about. Two fighters would want to fight with each other. They would go and look for some sponsors. The sponsors would decide whether or not, and these sponsors are gamblers, would say, yeah, I like, this is my guy. Another sponsor would sponsor somebody else and say, yeah, this is my guy. Look, man, I'm gonna put money in the purse. You put money in the purse, and the winner of it, the fighters and their managers will split the purse depending on who wins. But when they fought, and this is during the time in boxing when boxing was illegal, so they would agree to meet somewhere out, like 30 miles, 40 miles away from London or whatever portion of the of Great Britain that the fight was being held in. They would agree to meet out there, and what would happen is once the fight takes place, the money that the sponsors would make, the most money was made off the people that would show up to gamble on the fight. Some people would say, "Oh, I got money on Crib. I got money on Melano. I got money on Richmond. I got money on Sutton." Right? Whatever it is, whoever they're fighting, even though Sutton, don't get me wrong, Sutton and Richmond didn't fight in the same time frame. For the true boxing nerds out there, I know that, but we'll take the we'll take the Melanois Crib fight, right? Because that was the first real big fight that involved international people, international fighters. Melano from the United States, Crib from the UK. They got together and they made a lot of bets were put out on a lot of money, and a lot of bets were put on the table. The majority of the money that was earned were the people that were betting on the fights. Right, that's where all the money was transitioned, but once they legalized boxing, that's when promoters were able to start making money, because then and this is where I'm talking about, like Tex Rickard in the early 1900s, for fights like I think it was the John L. Sullivan fight. Dixon was on the card. Later on, maybe 15, 20 years later, Jack Johnson, Jess Willard, Jack Dempsey. Once that was actually legalized, then the promoters could charge an interest fee. And then, but it's still the majority of the people that wanted to come were the people that wanted to gamble on the fights. So that is literally the history of boxing, is what Bob Arum is talking about. It pans out if you study the history of boxing at any length, really. So, but then what he did was, now this is where, of course, I disagree with Bob Arum. Well, I can't say I disagree with Bob Arum, but I find it interesting that he put the pressure not on the promoters, but the pressure's on the managers. Because he's like, look, you have managers that say, if you approach a manager for a fighter and say, look, I want you to fight guy A, and the odds here are basically going to be even odds on this fight, but this one, your guy is going to be a 12 to 1 favorite. The manager's going to say, oh no, man, I want the 12 to 1 favorite. I don't want the even money guy. I want the 12 to 1 favorite. So the manager will fight against the promoter and prevent that fight from being made. So he points the finger away from the promoter and points it to the manager. Now, the manager is supposed to be representing the interests of the fighter. So, the fighter might very well say, hey, I want an easier fight for more money. That's the risk reward equation that you hear out of fighters a lot. Okay. Some of your favorite fighters say that exact thing. But the thing that I find interesting, though, is at the beginning of the conversation when Bob Arum said, look, boxing is doing well. The gates just aren't very big. Now, let me show you an example of that. DAZN is paying all the money to the fighters. And the fighters like Canelo Alvarez and the people that are fighting Canelo Alvarez are going to get paid that money, a large chunk of money, regardless of whether or not anybody is going to show up to the venue. So that compounds the problem. One, you're going to have a lesser gate because there's no tension in the fight. Nobody's gambling, right? So not only is it a fight that just casual fans or hardcore fans don't want to see, it's a fight that gamblers don't want to bet on. So two reasons why the card might not do well. And the fighter is not incentivized, and the manager is not incentivized, and the promoter's not incentivized to actually make close fights, because the money's getting paid by the network and he have a multi-fight deal. So they just want to get through the multi-fight deal. That whole mixture means that explains why For Canelo Alvarez, you have 10,000 people that are actually at the show, and 10,000 and according to the rumors that I've heard, the energy and the weigh-ins are significantly less than they were before because there's just no interest. And when you look at the big money pay-per-view fights, you see that most of those fights included odds that were much closer. So people wanted to go see the fight. People wanted to pay for the fight. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it all goes around to this whole thing getting moved away from the consumer, whether it be the gambler or whether it be the boxing fan that just wants to go see the fight. Anyway, either that is the group of people that are providing the revenue at the gate. So I just thought that was a really good observation from Bob Arum. We'll see if that pays out and how that pans out in this fights with like Deontay Wilder. And one of the effects of these people saying, oh, Deontay Wilder should get him out of here in the first round. Okay, so if you're saying Deontay Wilder should get Luis Ortiz out of there in the first round, you're telling gamblers not to make a bet because they're going to lose their money, and you are pretty much discouraging people from going to the fight. That's another ramification of or the effect of what Bob Arum is saying. So let me know what you think in the comment section. Like I said, man, this is the Boxing Nerd Out series because I got to be able to talk about these in videos. Can't always do the videos with the hot breaking news. It is what it is, and with that, I'm out. Peace.